In the beautiful town of Umu lived a young woman named Ama. Ama was known across the town for her beauty, grace and compassion. Her skin was smooth and polished, and her eyes sparkled like the stars on a clear night. She was married to Oko, a man whose love for her was pure and unwavering. For 5 years they had shared their lives together, but there was one shadow that darkened Alice. Otherwise happy life, she was a bearing woman in Umuagu. Motherhood was viewed as a woman's highest calling, a sign of favor from the gods. The people believed that a woman's W was measured by the number of children she bore, unfortunately for Ama. This belief became the source of endless pain for her, though Sho were deeply in love with each other, always spending time together. But as time went by, the villagers began to gossip behind their back. The women of Omu particularly took great pleasure in mocking. They gathered at the riverbank every morning, laughing and gossiping at all who passed by. "Look, Jay, she goes Amaka will snare," as Olanma approached the river. Amaka, a mother of 6 healthy children, was the ringleader of the village women and took great pride in her large family. A woman so beautiful, yet no children to show for it. What a waste, AA would say. The others will laugh, Cly, maybe the gods are punishing her. Another woman in Kai would add, what good is beauty if you cannot even bear a child? All, outwardly strong, felt the weight of their words like a heavy stone in her heart. She kept her head high and she fed her water, pretending not to hear their insults, but when she returned home, the loneliness engulfed her. She longed for her child, someone to love and hold, someone who would silence the CER voices of the other women and bring peace to her heart. Oko, ever the faithful husband, would comfort her. "Do not listen to them, my love," he would say, holding her so close to himself. "You are more than enough for me. Children will come when the gods are ready." But it wasn't just the women of Omu who tormented Ama. Oko's mother, Mama Oko, was a harsh and impatient woman. She had high hopes for her son, and after 5 years of marriage with no children, her frustration grew by the day. "You have been in this house for how many years now?" Mamao would say with disdain. "Still no children, no grandchildren to want my old bones. What kind of a woman are you?" Would lower her head in shame, unable to respond. She had prayed and sacrificed at every shrine, seeking for favor for the gods, but still no child came. "If you cannot bear my son, children," Mamao would continue, "perhaps it is time for you to leave so that he can marry another woman who will." Alas had shattered into pieces with each C word she loved Oko dearly, and the thought of leaving him was unbearable. But what could she do? She had done everything, her prayers, her sacrifices, yet her W remained empty. One particularly harsh day, after an argument with Mamao, Olanma fled from the house. She could no longer endure the pain and the shame, the whisper, and the constant pressure to fulfill a role she so desperately wanted, but could not control. Her feet carried her away from the village into the thick forest. Beyond, she didn't know where she was going. She only knew she needed to escape. As the sun began to set, and the shadows of the 3 grew longer and darker, found herself at the foot of a great tree. This was the Forbidden Tree, a place the villagers feared. Legends said that spirits and ancient gods dwell in the tree's depth, and those who venture too far would never return. Was not afraid at that moment. She felt she had nothing to lose. She knelt before the 3 and wept. "O great spirit of the 3, she cried, her voice wavering, "I come to you with a heavy heart. Please hear my plea. I have been teased, shamed, and tormented because I cannot bear a kid. If there is any mercy left in the world, please bless me with a child of my own. I am willing to do everything." For a long moment, there was quiet. The wind whispered through the tree, and all feared that no one had heard her cries. But just as she was about to rise and return home in despair, a soft voice called out from the darkness. The voice said, gently but commanding. Startled looked up. to see an old woman. Standing behind her, the woman was dressed in simple white robes, her hair silver like the moonlight, and her eyes sparkled with ancient wisdom. There was something outwardly about her presence, as if she was not entirely from this world. "Who are you?" asked, wiping her tears. "I am the servant of the three," the old woman replied, her voice like the rustling leaves. "Why do you weep so?" "Bitterly, my child. I weep because I cannot have a child," I explained, "and without child I am nothing in my village. My mother-in-law despises me, and the women mocked me. I would give anything to be blessed with a child." The old woman regarded her with a knowing gaze. "You speak of children as though they are the only measures of your worth, but there is more to life than the gift of motherhood or Olanma. Do you not see the beauty and kindness within you? Still, I understand your pain. The path ahead will not be easy. But if you are truly willing to do anything, then I will show you a way." Alls had raced with hope. "I will do anything," she said earnestly. The old woman nodded and pointed to a narrow path that led deeper into the forest. "Follow this path to the heart of the tree, there you will find a tree unlike any other. Its branches reach the heavens, and each fruit stretched to the depth of the earth. Pluck one, Lu, from its branches, and return to me without hesitation." All rose and followed. The forest grew darker and more forbidden with every step. With pressed on, driven by the hope that her prayers might finally be answered afterward, felt like as she reached a small clearing bathed in the silver glow of the moon. In the center of the clearing stood an animal tree with shimmering leaves that sparkled like stars. Olanma stopped in, for a time marveling at the tree's beauty. She delicately plucked a single leaf from its branches and headed back to the old woman, but as she did, a voice echoed through the clearing. "Olanma," the voice whispered, though there was no one in sight. "The part you seek comes with a price, Alice." Instead, her heart pounding what price she called into the darkness. But there was no response. She hurried back to the old woman who was waiting for her at the foot of the tree. "You have done well," the old woman said, taking the leaf from now. "Listen carefully when you return to your village. Plant this leaf in your garden and tend to it every day. If it will not grow into an ordinary tree, it will show you the way to motherhood, but you must be patient. The journey ahead will test your heart." Thanked the old woman and hurried home. Her heart filled with hope when she returned to her heart. She did as the old woman instructed. She planted the leaf in her garden and watered it every day. Weeks passed, and to her amazement, a small sprout emerged from the soil. But it did not grow like any other plant. Instead, it twisted and turned into strange outwardly shapes. As the plant grew, his dream became more vivid. She dreamed of a small child, a boy with eyes as bright as the sun. He could call out to her in her dreams, reaching for her with tiny hands, but each time she tried to hold him, he would vanish into thin air. The villagers spotted the plants growing in garden and began to murmur even more. "What is she doing now?" they said. "Possibly she has turned to a witch to get a child." Even Mamau grew suspicious. "What is this thing going in your garden?" she demanded. "One day you will bring a sea upon this house," but ignored them all. She knew her heart that the plant had the keys to her deepest desires. She continued to tend to it even as the gossip and rumors grew louder. One day, when the plant had grown tall and strong, something extraordinary happened as Olanma was tending to it. The plant began to glow with a soft golden light from its branches. A single fruit appeared, shaped like a small golden gar. It shimmered in the sunlight, and Olanma knew that this was the moment she had been waiting for. She carefully plucked the fruit and brought it inside. That night in her dream, the old woman appeared once again, standing in a clearing surrounded by moonlight. Her expression was calm, yet serious. The old woman said softly, "You have done well to follow the path with patience now. The food you have plucked is no ordinary fruit. It holds the essence of life, but beyond the gift of a child. Like all gifts from the spirit comes with conditions. All must had read what's condition, wise one. The old woman stepped closer, her voice quiet but firm. You must consume the fruit if you wish to bear a child. But understand this, your child will not be like others. He will be a blessing, yes. But his destiny will be tied to the spirit. You must raise him with great care, for he will not belong to this world alone. What do you mean by that? Asked, confused and anxious in time. You will understand, but know this, AMA, the love and protection you give him will shape his path. If you are ready to take this responsibility, then eat the fruit at sunrise. With that, the old woman disappeared and awoke, her heart pounding. The golden fruit lay on her table, glowing faintly in the morning sunlight. She hesitated, thinking about the old woman's words. What did it mean for her child to be to the spirit? Would he bring danger? Was she truly ready for such burden? But then she thought of all the years of mockery and pains, of her deep longing for a child. She did not come far to tea back at dawn, took the fruit in her hand, and with a prayer to the god she ate it. The test was unlike any other thing she had ever experienced, sweet yet strange, and as soon as she swallowed it, she felt a warmth spread through her body. It was as if the sun itself had taken root within her. She knew in that moment that something had changed. Days turned into weeks, and soon Ama realized she was pregnant. Her joy knew no bound. She rushed to tell Oko, who was overjoyed as well, and even Mama Oko, who had been so harsh before, softened at the news. The villagers were astonished. The woman they had mocked for years was finally with a child. The whispers turned from riddle to curiosity. How did it happen? They asked what magic did she use, but kept the secret of the old woman and the golden fruit to herself. As her belly grew, so did her dreams. Every night she dreamed of her child, always the same boy with bright eyes, laughing and reaching out to her. But in some dreams, shadow loom around him, and the old woman's word echoed in her ears. He will not belong to this world alone. Month passed, and finally the day of Beth arrived. It was a long and difficult labor, but in the end, Ama gave birth to a beautiful baby boy. He was perfect, with skin as smooth as hers, and eyes that gleamed with outwardly light. They named him Kuer. From that moment, he was born. It was clear that Chigo was not an ordinary child. As a baby, he really cried, but instead he would graze around the room with white, curious eyes, as if he could see things that no one else could. And as he grew, strange things began to happen around him. One day, when Chigo was only a few months old, Olanma was carrying him through the village when a strong wind began to blow. The villagers rushed to secure their heart, but Chigo giggled and reached as his tiny hands, and just like that, the wind stopped. The villagers were stunned. They began to whisper. The child had powers, that he was favored by the spirit. As Chigo grew into a toddler, more strange events occurred. Flowers bloomed wherever he crawled, and animals, even the wildest ones, seemed drawn to him, as if they recognized something in him that the villagers couldn't see. At first, Allah was overjoyed by her son's gift. It was everything she had prayed for and more. But as time went on, she began to worry. The old woman's warning weighed heavily in her heart. What did it mean for Chigo to be tied to the spirit? Was his destiny truly in her hands? Or was there something greater at work? One evening, when Chigo was about 5 years old, all took him to the same spot at the foot of the tree where she had first met the old woman. She needed answers. As she stood there, called out to the spirit. Great spirit of the trees, I have come once again. I beg you, please tell me what lies ahead of my son. What is the meaning of his gift? For a long time, there was silence. Alice had begun to sink. But then, just as before, the old woman appeared, stepping out from the shadows as if she had been waiting all along. The old woman said, her eyes filled with kindness, "You have done well in raising your son. His gifts are a blessing, but they also come with great responsibility. He was born of the tree's magic, and the spirit watched over him. But as he grows, he will have to choose his own path. Choose? Al inquired, confused. What option must he make? The old woman smiled softly. There will come a time when Go will be asked to serve the spirit to live among them and use his gifts for the welfare of the world. But the decision will be his. You cannot make it for him. All Mans had gripped the thought of losing her son was unbearable. Will he have to leave me? The old woman placed a gentle hand on his shoulders, perhaps, but remember, he is not yours alone. The world needs him just as much as you do. You must be strong, and trust that whatever part he chooses, it will be a right one. With that, the old man disappeared once again, leaving standing at the foot of the tree, her heart heavy with both pride and sorrow. As the years passed, Cho continued to grow, and his gifts became even more apparent. He could heal the sick with a touch of his hands, calm the storm, and speak to animals of the forest. The villagers came to awe him no longer, whispering behind his back, but instead bowing in awe when Chiggo walked by, yet could not forget the old woman's warning. She knew that the day would come when her son will finally select his way when Go got 18. That day finally came one morning as cooked breakfast. Chigo came to her with a somber expression on his face. "Mother," he whispered quietly, "it is time Ola must have broke." But she nodded, knowing this moment would come. "Do you know where you would go?" she asked, her voice cracking. Smiled softly. "The spirits have been calling me my dreams. I must go to the foot of the great tree. But don't worry, Mother. I'll always be with you, even if I'm not here." With tears in her eyes, Olanma embraced her son. She had raised him with love and so much care she could not withstand losing him to fulfill his destiny that evening. As the sun set behind the great tree, Chigo left the village. All watched him go. I had feud with both pride and sorrow. She knew he would become something greater than she could ever imagine. But she also knew that the love between them would never fade from that day. On the villagers could tell the story of All and her son, the child of the great tree, who had been born out of magic and love. And though she missed her son dearly, find peace in knowing that she had played her part in something much bigger than herself. And so her story, like the ancient tree, lived on a tale of hope, sacrifice, and the bond